Welcome back to the Call Movement podcast. Today, we're talking about something that so many women struggle in silence: food, weight, stress, body image, and the exhausting cycle of constantly starting over. I am so excited to have Ellie here with us today. Ellie specializes in intuitive eating, sustainable weight loss, and helping women reconnect with their bodies in a healthier and more sustainable way. So, Ellie, thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to reintroduce yourself and then we can jump right into the questions.
Yeah, that sounds great. And thank you so much for having me, Leticia. I love this topic. I think it's something that especially busy moms really struggle with. And between kids' activities and postpartum and now entering into a new season of life with elementary school age kids and perimenopause, there's so many seasons of transition and things going on that make it hard to keep it simple and really reconnect with what our bodies are craving during this season of life. So I'm so excited for today's conversation. And I think you really summed it up well with what I do. I'm a health coach focused on intuitive eating, weight loss, stress, and just very passionate about this work.
I love it. Such an important subject. Can we start talking about what is intuitive eating?
Yeah. So to me, intuitive eating is it's slowing down enough to tune into your body to know what to eat, when, and how much. And so instead of having a prescribed plan that tells you how much protein you need, what macros you need, how many calories or carbs, there are so many things that we've been taught to count over time. But I think instead of using outside rules to decide what you put into your body, it's slowing down enough to notice, am I physically hungry? If so, what am I craving right now, to help decide what to eat? And then being mindful along the way as you're eating to know when you hit your satisfied point.
Okay, I love how you said be intuitive to your body, see what are your cravings. But and that this connects actually connects with me because sometimes you know how we were taught to eat lots of protein. I clearly am from Brazil. I grew up eating lots of meat. That's part of my culture. That's part of my my DNA. I got to the point that I was questioning myself. Do I really need to eat this amount of protein? Am I really hungry for protein? And after I started training for my long races, my body started dictating what my body was in need. Like certain days, I just wanted like a plate of spaghettis. Other days, I would go to Chipotle and say, hey, double my protein. I could tell my body was craving protein. So, but it took me a long, long time to be where I am to fully understand what is my body telling me, what kind of macronutrients my body's asking. So how do we get there? How do we get into that point that I know I got into that point because I started listening to my body, but how do you teach women to get into that point that they fully understand what is the body's requesting from them as nutrients?
Yeah, and that's such a good question. I do often write about and tell like clients, prospective clients, like it takes a lot of effort for something to feel natural and easy and intuitive. So for me, I was someone who I played college sport, was recruited to play lacrosse at a D1 school, and I gained by I didn't know how to listen to myself. We trained a lot. We were on different surfaces. Afterwards, we would go and just eat whatever was in front of us at the dining hall. And I had never been allowed to just have as many cornmeal muffins as I wanted as a kid, so I fueled in a way that didn't wasn't really the most supportive or helpful. So there was this big mismatch or I was really out of alignment with being able to recognize what does my body need and how do I give that to myself right now. So the long story short, as if you fast forward through a lot of mindfulness and really slowing down and yoga and coming into myself, that was how I learned. And I'm skipping some steps there, but it really started with embracing where I was, my starting point, and then really tuning in one step at a time to what I needed. So to apply that to a client, which might be a little bit easier to understand, but sometimes it's helpful to know where a person came from.
Mhm.
With a client, we start by meeting them exactly where they are today. And so when I connect with someone, it's asking them, what is your normal routine? Or let's track your food for a few weeks to notice these are the patterns or common things that a person reaches for when they're having cravings or when they're feeling tired, or maybe they're not hydrated fully or had a big workout one day or is preparing for a race the next day. And so, how do we just start with where the person's at and get to notice, okay, here's some patterns. Here's foods that they generally are craving. Sometimes cravings, we can crave a donut because of a deficiency somewhere else. So cravings for sugar don't always mean, oh, I just want sugar and I'm going to give that to myself right now. It's all information to notice what's actually going on underneath in the body.
Understood. And I love that you're studying the habits, right? Really ask you those questions like, what are your habits? What are you eating? What are you snacking? So I'm loving the program, the concept. Thank you, Ellie. So can you tell us, based on your experience, why do so many women feel like they're constantly on and off the wagon with their eating?
Yeah. So I think we're sold that what's the best way to describe it? I think diets are fun, meaning they're activating a part of us that are excited and we're starting something new. Our brain feels comforted by the fact that we have a plan to get from point A to point B, but we're not, if we're only looking at food in a vacuum and we're not taking into a person as their full self, meaning like who they are emotionally, what are their thoughts? How are they what are they craving spiritually? Like them as a whole person to make sustainable changes going forward. If you don't lose weight in a way where it becomes a side effect of who you are becoming and your habit, then when you get to the end goal, nothing's there to stay because you haven't become that person along the way. And so then typically we'll fall back into our old way of being and pattern, which is your weight is already a side effect of that version of you. And so it'll just come back to where you were. And then we get on this cycle of feeling like we need a new plan to figure it out again. So we're constantly searching for the right plan to create the end result that we want. But if we're not changing our identity with it, then you're creating this yo yo pattern, and the diet culture just thrives off of that. Does that make sense?
It does. So, Ellie, what I'm understanding that intuitive eating is not a diet. It's building a habit that it has lots of components behind, not only food, but also that mindset. Also fully understand what is your body craving? What does that mean? As you have mentioned, you might want a donut, but it might be something else. So can you explain to me how can I use intuitive eating if someone has gone through so many weight loss, dieting, and then at a certain point they feel stuck, they're done, they don't even want to try anymore. How
Yeah.
can you reverse that?
Yeah. So I first, what you were just describing made me think of like intuitive eating is definitely not a diet. It's much more of a way of being. And so when someone walks into their pantry or to their fridge and they start to open the door, it's standing in front of it and saying, what do I need right now? And the answer that bubbles up for you could be that you're physically hungry. It could be that you're bored or you're feeling lonely or disconnected or tired. Like there's so many other things that could come up where it's like, okay, then what's the best way to take care of myself in this moment? So for me, someone that I was on a consult with at the end of our call, she said, is intuitive eating it for you? Like, how do you know? I was like, it stopped me because I was thinking, like, gosh, it's, I can't imagine not listening to myself anymore and deciding to go have someone tell me what I need to eat to get to a certain place. So, yeah, it's very interesting to me to think about that. And also, we're entering a season of life, I'll be 40 next year. And when I imagine life for myself in perimenopause, I do think that there's also room for strategy on so I'm about to contradict myself, but when you are looking for food and working to balance hormones at the same time, it is helpful to think through how do I balance my meal to help stabilize my blood sugar, which is going to lead to this ripple effect of stabilizing hormones. So a person's journey through intuitive eating really starts with where they are, meaning like meeting them where they're at. Some people that I work with have come from standard American diet and we're just working on how do we reduce processed foods. And so that's what's best for them. Other people are very prescribed, working on hormones already, working on reducing inflammation, gut health, whatever it is, but they have a different concept of health for where the snapshot that they are in today. So then we have that and so much more information there to work from to plan going forwards. Um, so yeah, all that to say, it's definitely not a diet, but it's leveraging a person's life experience so far and using that to guide and optimize moving forward. Does that make sense?
It
I
does.
didn't
And
answer your question.
you did, but you opened the space for so many more questions.
Yeah.
So you have mentioned that you've been working with women who is going through menopause, who is taking, I don't know if you said hormone supplements, but who's going through perimenopause, menopause. And how do you see with the women that you've been with your clients? How do you see that hormones, stress, sleep, emotional load affect cravings, hunger, and weight gain? How intuitive eating can be connected with all that I just mentioned.
Yeah, so I do, and I will say that I do try to stay very tight in my lane as a health coach. So I'm not a provider or functional medicine doctor or someone who can speak more detailed into the science behind all of those things. But I did meet with a functional medicine provider recently in the last few weeks who said she works with women who are going through these different life changes. And she just kept saying again and again, like, lifestyle plays such a huge role in our balance as people. And so the more we can slow down and be really present with ourselves and what we need, the more I think the body knows how to heal itself and how to move through these different seasons of life. I do think it's a gift that in today's world we have access to things like hormone replacement therapy or even GLP-1s or, different tools that people are connecting with their provider to see what's the best next step for them. But there's always room alongside any pathway forward that a person takes for lifestyle and stress reduction. And I would say it's always a good idea to reconnect with yourself and run all decisions through your own internal filter, which could include what's the best next step in terms of different modalities that I just mentioned, and also running things through the filter of what do I need in terms of food right now? What do I need in terms of movement in this season of life? Or given where I am in my cycle, how's my sleep? So I hopefully that helps, but I think just the more we can stay present with ourselves, even in the discomfort of the changes that people are going through in their 40s and 35 and older, really, the more we'll be better equipped to make decisions that are in alignment to optimize your health.
And I love how you mention as we go through the seasons of life,
Hmm.
that already tells how we have to be flexible with our plans, how we have to be flexible with our expectations. Because I do feel after 35 or after having kids, I had one set of how I execute my tasks, my priority, and then life happens with my kids. As you said, you move your life with the seasons of life.
Yeah, I think the gist of what I was trying to I don't remember the words I used, but like the more we can be present with ourselves through the season of life,
Yeah.
I think your body has this innate wisdom to know the beauty of intuitive eating is I can go anywhere and eat anything that I want, but intuitive eating is not laying on the couch eating pizza all day or cake all night. It's really like using the wisdom of what makes you feel good in these seasons.
Coming from Brazil, so I've been here for 22 years. I'm very Americanized. I embrace the culture, I embrace everything. But I couldn't help myself to notice the relationship that we have with food in America is very different from other countries. It's almost a I don't want to generalize, but I see this a lot. I eat a piece of cake and it's delicious. I gotta go for a walk.
Mhm.
Oh, I had a huge meal. I gotta go for a walk. Sure, it's all about the movement, but I don't think you're going for a walk because you're thinking, I gotta move. You're going for a walk because you think you're gonna get weight and you're feeling guilty for going to that birthday party and eating that piece of cake. And I don't like that. If I'm gonna take a piece of cake, I want to full enjoy. I want to taste that cake, and I don't want to be eating the cake and thinking how many calories is in this piece of cake because I gotta walk 5 miles to burn that calorie. And I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of this happening that women is eating but thinking about the calories they're ingesting and then trying to go to exercise to burn that calorie is just not a good relationship with food.
Mhm.
And what is your take on that?
Yeah, I feel like so I read this book about intuitive eating that was awesome. And this gal led a retreat, and someone at the retreat said, "So you mean I can eat chocolate fudge sundaes every day and still lose weight?" And she said, "Well, yeah, you could, but I think your body will start to crave those things less over time the more you give yourself the chance to enjoy them." So, to get even more descriptive, like if you're really present with the birthday cake at the party, like you're describing, and you're noticing every bite and you're giving yourself time to like move the cake around in your mouth and really savor it and soak it up. What I have personally found and what I've heard from clients is that after like 3 or 4 bites, you kind of get that satisfaction met. So practicing the skill of when I'm no longer enjoying it as much and I got what I needed, practicing the skill of letting it go is one thing. So maybe it's actually just significantly reducing how much of it you have, not because of the calories, but because of your level of enjoyment and noticing that as it goes down, maybe we just push it away and be done. So that's one thing. But also, sometimes it just feels good to enjoy the whole piece and fully be present with it. And um, I like to practice ahead of time some decision making. So, for example, sitting with a client before and planning ahead for knowing, okay, I know I'm going to go out to dinner with my family this weekend, and they always like to order pizza, or we always end up getting dessert, or whatever that looks like for them. But then really walking through a visualization of, what if the meal could go the way that you want it to go, what are you thinking? What's the experience of the food? What are the choices that you're making? But practicing the skill of deciding ahead of time, like I think I really am okay with enjoying a full piece of cake and then the next day drinking a lot of water, like what is the whole picture more broadly look like? Or it could be, and that's coming from their intuition, so that's really coming from their future state that's gonna look back and say, "Yeah, that went how I wanted it to go." So learning how to have your own back and decide ahead of time, like,
What are your
and then
choices?
follow through with yourself. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it brings me back with questions such as control and the food fear. Like a lot of women will fear that if they stop dieting or if they stop controlling food, they are gonna be completed. They're gonna lose control of everything and around the food. What you
Um,
say to them if that's their fear? I can't stop diet. I can't stop controlling food. Otherwise, I'm gonna go on a spiral.
yeah. Well, a couple things. My first reaction is I I love this way of being, but I will never try to convince someone who's not ready
Ah,
to tune into their body, and so it could really be that they're just not at a point yet where they're wanting to learn the skill, but because I do think that belief and mindset matter, and I think anybody can learn the skill and will evolve into their natural set point that is their healthiest, brightest, most vibrant self. So I hold that belief for anybody who wants it, but I do think there's a certain point where, a person has to kind of get where they're, like, willing to sit with that discomfort, which is really why support is so helpful to be reminded, like, again and again to keep listening to their body.
you it's safe to assume that a lot of women they will feel disconnected from their bodies after trying to diet for so many years. And then how do you get to trust your body again after so many years of dieting and disappointments and on and off the wagon and that total disconnection from the body? How do you bring them back? to reconnect the body again?
So that's a really good question. I feel like people who generally find me, they come because I market weight loss without having to count things or giving up their favorite foods completely. Like there is a middle ground where we don't have to have a prescriptive plan. Um, or we're not in between a diet or completely off the wagon. It's this like middle ground of practicing good, healthy habit and allowing ourselves enjoyment of food at the same time. That being said, for people who are brand new, it really starts with one step at a time. And so on calls with clients, we'll do some different regulating techniques. I weave in some body scans, like we're practicing live together what it feels like to be more present and connected in their body. But it really is, there's this old Buddhist saying like a jug is filled drop by drop. And so it's this one step at a time, which I think I know from our conversations even prior to being on the podcast, like I know that's in alignment for you. Like it's small, you can only get an elephant one bite at a time, one step at a time. So I think this is no different. And it's really taking the journey of reconnecting to your body one step at a time and choosing to work with someone who's already been down that road and has created what you're looking for, I think has so much value. To learn those skills because it's a learned skill.
Yes, it is a learning skill. And you mentioned people who come to you walk through their shoes. You've been there. So you're more connected because you can share the same emotions. You experienced the same anxieties and discomfort. You are the perfect example because for a real life scenario, what does intuitive eating action looks like before, during, and after? How did it
Hmm.
start for you when you start doing your intuitive eating? Maybe it was not even part of your business. It became you. How did you came into that conclusion? This is what I need. This is what's gonna work out for me. And now you live it and you experience and you know it works.
Yeah. Gosh, I wonder how to put all that into.
Too big of a
So
sentence. Too
yeah, no, well, it's not, but it also is, it's funny how life kind of just comes together and works out. I've always had a passion for mindfulness. So I did my 200-hour and 300-hour yoga teacher trainings a couple, like almost 2 decades ago now. But so I have a deep love for mindfulness practices and things that will get us to be more present. Fast forward and yeah, I gained and lost 40 pounds with each of my kids. And I didn't do anything drastic. I really kept a simple routine, um, prioritized eating when I was hungry, stopping at about satisfied. But I didn't have the language yet. So I was living it, but I didn't know that I was intuitive eating, which is kind of interesting. So it was diet culture in my young 20s, all through the first half of my 30s, having my three kids. I was living the intuitive eating, but didn't have the language. And then it wasn't until I was a software engineer before becoming a health coach. I stopped working in software because of motherhood and just multiple daycare drop offs and things feeling wild, for a better word. And so they gave me the gift of finding coaching through business and everything that I was learning, I wanted to apply into the health space. So then I became a certified health coach and a certified life coach and then a certified health coach. And it was working with my business coach who had actually trained the creators of intuitive eating and coached them in starting kind of their journey that connected the dots for me that what I was doing was their process. And so it's kind of interesting. So I became a certified health coach and then developed this language around what I was doing and have training in mindful eating. And so it just kind of evolved over time, but I've been living it for a very long time. Does that make sense?
it does. It does. And thanks for
Yeah.
sharing because I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out, did you read the book and decide intuitive eating was for you? And here we are.
Uh-huh.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about food noise and obsession. What would you say for women who feel consumed by food thoughts all day long? That's all they think is about food. Can intuitive help? Can intuitive eating help them? Can you quiet the food noise and obsession around food by implementing intuitive eating? I know it's two questions.
Yeah, all of my clients unanimously have said they feel food freedom, less food noise. And I really attribute that to when you have food noise, which to me is spinning thoughts about food that are just kind of playing on repeat in your brain. That is not your true nature or authentic self. Like that is your brain in survival and fear mode kind of spinning
Mm-hmm.
over how am I gonna control my weight? And
Mm-hmm.
so the more we can come into, again, the body and stress pieces, stress regulation modalities, which can come through breathing. I love just different like neck rolls, back breathing, like different tools to just calm the nervous system so that you're really living in a centered, balanced state as much as possible. It's like building up resilience to come back into center. When my clients are in center, we're able to have more productive conversations around what is their biggest fear and what is the worst case scenario of enjoying the birthday cake at a party and really airing out thoughts that the brain is serving can be so helpful. So there's different tricks from a mindset coaching perspective combined with calming stress and teaching skills of coming back into center and then with intuitive eating, cake is not off limits anymore. And so allowing yourself to have what you really crave until your satisfaction point or enjoyment kind of peaks, like that is one way where my clients feel so empowered to know they can walk into any room or party and have whatever they want. And often they're like, I'm not really hungry though.
But very liberating.
Yeah.
What I am enjoying about this conversation is I didn't really know what is intuitive eating. And I was expecting that you're going to lecture us on how you can diet, how you can lose weight, and you should take your X amount of protein because of your body weight. And here I am learning from you how your approach is so holistic that it's not only about allowing yourself to enjoy a piece of cake, but it's truly be present and how lower your stress levels, being in contact with your body, feel your body, reconnect with your body. And I never in a million year would add those food and hormones and connection with the body in one sentence and see them as a whole and everything is interconnected. So very eye opening. Um, well, if someone feels stuck, overwhelmed, exhausted, they keep trying over and over, food and dieting, resources is limited for this person. What would be your
Yeah.
one and only advice for this person who is feeling stuck and exhausted and keeps starting over and over?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say if you have the vision of wanting to be, I'm going to just quote unquote say normal, healthy person that's like eating when they're hungry, stopping when they feel satisfied, making food choices that they're not overthinking. Um, that was my vision for myself. I was like, there's no reason that I shouldn't be able to quote unquote figure this out. But it took being scrappy, being present, sitting with a really hard season of my life. And if you're not able to get support, I would just say the more that you can come back into yourself. For some reason, I have this vision of like child's pose. Like the more that you can quiet into yourself and then trust that whatever comes up for you is your best next step, whether it's deciding what to eat that day or anything else, that's where I would start. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other you don't need a coach to figure out intuitive eating, but it is so I don't want anyone to feel like, "Oh my gosh, I need support right now to figure this out and make progress." Like there are books on intuitive eating. There are even just getting to yoga and getting more connected with your body will lead you to the next right step. I do think there's really high value in having a guide to help you move forward, but life isn't over if that's not available to you.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Appreciate that. One last question before my rapid fire questions. How do I control emotional eating?
That's a good question. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about emotions. And we all, as humans, we all experience a full range of emotions every single day. So emotional eating is so valuable because it is increasing dopamine and serotonin when you eat, and but it's also not giving you the long-term effect that you want. And so just starting by knowing that what you're doing, the behavior of emotional eating is very powerfully helping you with your feelings. Like that awareness, I think, is a great starting point to then slowly step back and ask yourself, like, what am I feeling right now? And the more that we can practice self acceptance and compassion for whatever feeling comes up, because feelings don't always make sense. Like, feeling you could be doing something that anybody else would think is super fun out there with your kids, and you could be totally feeling exhausted and tired and sad about something else. And so, it's not always, we think there should be more logic around our feelings, but often there's not. And so I think it's very hard for people to allow themselves to just feel the way they feel. But the more, yeah, I would say self-acceptance is the biggest lever to help reduce emotional eating.
I love that answer. So perfect. All right. Rapid fire questions.
Mhm.
Biggest mistake women make with weight loss.
Too rigid? Like too rigid following a plan?
Is emotional eating always bad?
No.
Does intuitive eating mean eat whatever I want?
No.
What is one habit that helps women to feel more in control around food?
Deep breathing.
Most overlooked reason women struggle with weight.
Rapid, Ellie. Come on. I think misinformation or overwhelmed by information.
Yes. Yes. We can talk. It's rapid questions. Sorry, I will zip it. One thing women should stop doing immediately around food.
Restricting.
One thing women should start doing today.
Loving their food or noticing it.
Love it. Awesome. Ellie, this conversation has been incredible, powerful, and truly liberating. Thank you so much for your time. I hope this conversation can help a lot of women to reassess how they approach food, weight loss, with a little bit more compassion for themselves and sustainability. To everyone listening to this podcast, your health is not built through punishment, it is built through consistency, awareness. I cannot pronounce that word. Awareness and learning to trust yourself again. We'll see you next time. Thank you for being here. This is the Call Movement. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you.